Welcome to the second episode of Bad Wrestling is Good. This is your host, Chuck. We're joined again by my buddy, Dave. How's it going today?
It's going pretty well. How we doing?
Can't complain. It's been about a month since our last episode. I can't remember the exact timing, but there's been a lot of shit that's been going on in the wrestling world, and we got a lot of fun shit to talk about today. Any highlights in the since we last recorded, Dave, that you got off the bat?
I don't have a highlight, but I unfortunately have a low light. I re-listened to the first episode in preparation, and we spoke very highly of our love, both past and present, for LA Park. But I don't know if you heard the news.
Oh, we can rip that right now.
Yeah, because like
they're done for.
This, if anyone just listened to that first episode, you're gonna be like, "What did these guys not hear about this?" But that was back in like January. We did not. This had not happened yet. But he and his family, he being LA Park, and his.
It's like LA Park Jr. and El Helio. Yeah,
I don't know how to say it.
Something like that.
De LA Park, yeah. And they shot on some guys. They like legitimately tried to beat some guys up.
It was Hammerstone, and I can't remember the other wrestler. Fatu, Jacob Fatu, yeah. I think. Yeah, I was actually reading that story today, reading more into it, because it came across my Twitter feed, and I never actually had read into it that much. And so I read the complete story, and I was just surprised. I'm not surprised. I mean, there's stories like this all over the wrestling business, but they're kind of rare in 2022.
Yeah, and I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Like we did appreciate his work over the years, but we obviously, in retrospect now, we obviously don't condone, what took place.
Going into business for yourself and inflicting physical harm on several individuals is pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to get that out of the. We're here to laugh. We're not here to be upset. Yeah. So, but I wanted to make sure we got that out of the way.
Let's get a couple more sad notes out of the way. Unfortunately, Scott Hall passed away. Rip to the bad guy was one of my favorite wrestlers of what I call the cartoon era. He was just so influential on the business, and unfortunately, he passed away a couple weeks ago.
He was the coolest guy, and I like obviously everybody knows that, but just from my point of view, as a kid, like I hated the guy. I thought he was because he was the bad guy. But even then, when I was a kid who fully believed everything and hated this guy's guts, I still thought he was the coolest guy.
Yeah, still one of my probably. In my top 20 matches all time is going to be 1-2-3 Kid on Raw against Razor Ramon, where it just absolutely made 1-2-3 Kid's career. If you have a chance, go back and watch that, and go back and they have a nice little documentary on Razor Ramon that they produced a couple years ago, WWE that is. That's very, very good. So go take a look at that and just remember all the good shit that he did. Another sad note is we have Big E out with a broken neck. I saw the incident after it happened because I don't watch Raw. That's not like something you want to happen to a person like Big E, who just seems to be the most genuinely nice person on the planet.
Absolutely, but the good news is his neck is 87% muscle, and
it's thick. It's insane.
If anybody's gonna make it, sorry about that. If anyone's gonna make it through that, it's gonna be Big E, and he seemed to be in pretty good spirits considering the circumstances.
Absolutely. Another big story was, well, it's not even a big story. It's kind of like the most under the radar story going on in the wrestling business right now, but Cesaro is no longer with WWE. And nobody seems to be talking about it. Everyone's still up on the Cody stuff, which is, thank goodness we actually waited to record, because we were going to record this a couple weeks ago before the Cody situation had played out. And now Cesaro seems to be the biggest free agent out there, at least in my mind. Hopefully he finds a way to New Japan very soon, for me at least. Where do you want to see him go?
I mean, in a selfish way, AEW, because it's what I watch the most. But
absolutely.
But in being realistic and being where he would actually have the best matches, I also agree he should go to New Japan.
I just want to see him versus Okada one time. Just let them go like 45 minutes, and I'll be happy. I could die a happy man.
You can't put that thought in my head now. I won't be able to get that out of my head until it happens.
That's a match that's more than likely going to happen in the next calendar year.
That's
if you think about it.
So sick to think about.
Now that I completely forgot about it and didn't have it in my notes, but another big thing is Dynamite and Rampage are now on New Japan World in Japan with Japanese commentary, which is a huge fucking step for them. That, starts kind of... Everyone jokes with the meme about the Forbidden Door, but that is a serious business relationship where now you can actually start thinking that these companies are going to start working together in a more often basis.
It's kind of weird that, like, I do agree with you, but it's kind of weird that, like, all these other big relationships they had, like when they were working with Impact and stuff, like it was all these big surprises and it was all revealed via like wrestlers showing up in places and stuff. But this, I know they've worked with New Japan before, but not in like a major way. But they're just like casually now doing this huge business deal that's like,
it's literally airing their television show in the country. Like,
yeah,
that's one of the only places I think that probably see AEW in that country. So that's a major deal. This isn't just like Kenta coming over for a match.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a big deal, but it wasn't like there's a continued thing. It was like a handful of matches.
Yeah. Another weird thing, Tony Khan is quickly becoming Thanos of wrestling, and he now owns ROH. I watched the Supercard of Honor, and it was fucking insane. FTR versus the Briscoes is one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, that's like the privilege of being a fan today, is because despite them for the longest time not being in the same company, they've been building that match for like a year and a half just on Twitter.
For almost as long as like FTR built their feud against the Bucks, to be honest. Like, they were going at each other forever.
And everybody knew it was eventually bound to happen, but I don't think anybody, if you set us up a month or two beforehand, I don't think anybody says, oh yeah, that match happens, but it happens in ROH, except not that ROH, the Tony Khan owned ROH. Yeah,
Tony Khan ROH is wild.
Nobody was predicting that one.
They now have a smaller promotion that they can put guys like they've already started. I mean, their first show they put the Pure Championship on Yuta right out the gate, and now they're going to sport those belts all around Dynamite for eternity and just bring relevancy back to that brand. So I'm very happy because I loved ROH and it had been on a decline for a very long time. So if I can, relive kind of my biggest fandom of ROH again, that'd be great.
I mean, they've got so much talent at this point that, although they are doing a lot with their shows on YouTube, there's still room for more people, more talent to have matches and storylines, and they can essentially send a whole nother company's worth of people over to the quote unquote new ROH.
Yeah. And speaking of talent, I just don't want to get too far away from them. I think right now FTR is on probably one of the most insane tag team match runs you will ever see in the history of pro wrestling. They had that insane match against the Briscoes, and then not a week later, just burned the house down with the Bucks on Dynamite. And it's lovely to see these guys finally doing what they love and getting the credit that they have. Bret Hart is a huge FTR stan, and I'm just living for every moment of it. He's going out every night in FTR shirts and just posting the shit on Twitter and on Instagram, and I love it.
FTR is like gonna be eternally over until they retire, basically.
Yeah, they will be heels, but they will never be bad guys, so to say.
Yeah, they're just gonna be the old school beat 'em up tag team wrestlers, and they're the absolute best at it.
Mm-hmm. Before we move on, let's just touch on AEW Revolution. There was some absolute... It feels bad now because it's been so long since it happened. It's probably like, a month since it happened.
Something like that, yeah.
That card was absolutely insane. The Kingston Jericho match to start it off was one of my favorite Eddie Kingston matches and probably my favorite Chris Jericho match ever. Then you had the Punk MJF dog collar match. Once again, wild, bloody, just a brawl.
That thing was brutal.
It is brutal. I've watched it a couple times, and it's like it's one of those ones that's great, but it can be rough to watch at times because of how brutal it is. And then all of a sudden, you have William Regal making his debut and starting, Blackpool Combat Club between Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson. The Mox Danielson match was absolutely insane. It was everything you wanted it to be. And it makes you just think certain aspects of the IWC likes to defend WWE and say that when these people leave, they're just crybabies. But you see these guys that wrestled a whole bunch in WWE go to AEW and have a match, and they have a match like you've never seen before between the two. And it was absolutely fantastic. I'm excited to see where the Blackpool Combat Club goes. We already brought up Cesaro, and the popular opinion right now is to bring him in and put him in that group, and I would say no, please don't, because you've already got two studs in Danielson and Moxley. You don't want Cesaro in there.
Yeah, and you give him Wheeler Yuta, and you move on.
Yeah, I want more young guys in there.
And then that's your group. No, I agree. I mean, listen, if Cesaro would somehow end up there, would I be mad? No, but I agree. He's not the right guy.
I'm very upset right now that Daniel Garcia is not in this group and he's in this stupid fucking Jericho Appreciation, whatever it's called. But
I love it.
He will find his way to the Combat Club soon as well, because that would be tight as hell.
No way. He's way too good at being like the sleazy asshole.
I know.
Keep him with Jericho. It's great.
Imagine. That would be so good. Our main topic today is going to be something that you picked, you son of a bitch. I had never exposed myself to this before.
Yeah.
Until you decided we were going to talk about it. And we're going to do Sharmell versus Jenna Morasca, TNA Victory Road 2009. Dave, why'd you pick this?
Because this is just like, to me, one of the funniest matches of all time. It's just like it's nothing. That's it
is.
It's nothing.
It's
dude.
A whole lot of nothing.
It's nothing.
But it's a whole lot of something as well.
It's nothing for like 12 minutes.
It's wild. The timestamp. Go to your Impact Plus app there. Give them some money to watch this.
Please don't. I'm so sorry.
It's on the Victory Road 2009 pay-per-view. The timestamp is the 1 hour 13 mark. The Wrestling Observer rating for this match is a famous -5 stars.
-5 stars.
It's the wonderful meme we all have come to love. If you want to see some bonus bad stuff, tune in like 2 minutes before. Apparently, there's a match between the Dudleys defending the IWGP Tag Team Championships, which is wild to think about in 2022. And there's also a promo right before the match with the referee Slick Johnson, which is the most like pro wrestling name ever.
I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. Not everything in TNA in like this late 2000s era was bad at all, but when they just occasionally did some things that were this bad. That's the problem.
I'm not familiar at all with TNA at this point. I had watched them earlier on in their stuff, and then I keep up with them now. But this Millionaire Mafia that keeps coming up and stuff, or Main Event Mafia, that's what it is, right?
Main Event Mafia, yeah.
No idea what this stuff is.
That was like all the big guys. That was like Kurt Angle and Scott Steiner and Kevin Nash.
Hogan, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then apparently Mick Foley was like leading some sort of Job Squad-esque of TNA originals against them. But that's probably for a whole nother show.
Yeah.
This match between Sharmell and Jenna Morasca is wild. It's on a pay-per-view, but they do nothing to explain why it's happening to the viewer at home. Me, as someone that has no background on this, is why these two girls are fighting and what this feud is. I have no idea, because commentary, there's no package, there's nothing. There's no video package, there's nothing on commentary to set it up. They just say, hey, here's this match between these two people that are in the same stable, apparently.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know the whole storyline either, nor do I care to research enough to find out. But you know, as with similar things like Johnny Fairplay and WCW and stuff, like, it's just someone got famous on, you know, big television, on Survivor in these cases, and like, let's shoehorn them into any angle we can just to get them on our television because it'll put eyes on our product. Like, it's nothing. It was always nothing.
That's like literally the only information they give you about Jenna Morasca before the match, is that she was on Survivor Amazon.
I believe you. So,
and that she won. Also, I want to mention that the commentary team, as much as I love Mike Tenay, the combination of Mike Tenay and Don West is probably my least favorite in pro wrestling history. Don West, I just never have been a fan. Mike Tenay's great, but when he's just presented with situations like this, it just gets bad. When he's talking about things he loves, like the cruiserweights back in the day with WCW, he's great because he was the only person that knew what these guys were doing. But at this point in his career, he's just there cashing a bag, and I'm not going to hate on him, but it's not great work from anyone on commentary on this match. I just wanted to point that out before we got into it.
Dude, even giving like 60% energy, Mike Tenay is the only thing holding up a lot of these matches.
Very true. We have Sharmell coming out to Harlem Heat music. It's probably honestly the entire highlight of the segment for me, because I just always go off when I hear that fucking music. That I just can't not get hyped for that. She comes out wearing this fucking blue gown with feathers that you're going to see just litter the ring for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, this is clearly not a wrestling outfit. She has boots on, but
they clearly like altered a dress she already had and just made like another space for her second leg to get through.
Because it's not long enough for her to step on, but she finds a way.
Yeah, it's damn close. Then we have, after that, Awesome Kong coming out. I never not pop for her. She is one of my favorite female performers. I loved whenever she went to WWE. And the circumstances behind it are really unfortunate. You can do your own research as to why she just never worked out there.
# do your own research.
Yeah, absolutely. But she's always great. I loved whenever they brought her in for, what was it, All Out, and did the it was an 8-man female tag, and it was Awesome Kong facing off against Bull Nakano, and that was insane.
That's cool.
The next note I have is honestly Sharmell just wrestling in a whole ass gown. I just still can't get over it. The match starts with possibly two of the worst executed moves I've ever seen. Jenna obviously has no earthly idea how to lock up.
Are we not going to comment on Jenna's entrance? Because it's something.
I don't even remember, to be honest. What does she do in it? Go for it.
It's the most outwardly sexual thing outside the Attitude Era I've ever seen.
That's a theme that she plays up through the whole match.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think the tie-in at the time was, I think her and Heidi, were one of the other girls.
We're doing like Playboy
from her season on Survivor did Playboy. So I think that was the whole thing. But like the cameraman, dude, like I'm not gonna say, well, go watch it yourself, people. I'm not gonna say exactly where the cameraman has this camera, but I'll say that it's,
I'm sure,
pay-per-view worthy. But yeah,
Unreal.
But then anyway, sorry. And then the match begins.
The first lockup is one of the most comical things I've ever seen. Jenna has no idea what she's doing. No idea whatsoever. And then Sharmell delivers a forearm to the back that may be the worst recorded strike in pro wrestling history. She just, like, the striking in this match alone makes me want to dive out a window because there's not a believable one.
It's the weird thing is though, and I don't know if they thought they were being just creative or if they just legitimately were just swinging for the fences, but they like find like 3 or 4 different ways to do the worst strikes of all time. Yes. Like that those forearms, she somehow jumps into them and yet makes them look like they didn't hit at all somehow.
And then Jenna sells it like she got shot by a shotgun at point blank range.
Yeah, and she's doing stuff like doing this back scratch thing, and like she's, it looks like she's just like waving air at her back, like she's trying to cool her back off.
Yes, absolutely. There's several times where Jenna is like striking. I'm doing air quotes. You can't see me right now, but striking Sharmell, where it looks like she's just trying to like wipe something vigorously off her face.
Yeah.
Like nothing's landing, nothing looks vicious, nothing looks believable whatsoever. Speaking of things that don't look believable, you got to get some eyes on Jenna Morasca running the road.
Okay, so there's like even if you cut her a little bit of slack because like the TNA hexagon ring, like those ropes were shorter so they were tighter. However, she didn't touch them.
It was the most insane shit ever. She would run and then like stop dead in her tracks like like right before them and then do the weakest slingshot you've ever seen in your life.
She just like put her arm over the rope and then turned around and ran the other way.
And started running the other way.
And like she would run like the okay. So obviously the physics of like the Irish whip and the bouncing off the ropes is, you know, kind of goofy because it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why don't you just stop? But everybody understands that if you get thrown off the ropes, you come back straight the other way. She quote unquote bounces off the ropes and then does like a bell curve up around Sharmell to get to the other side.
Yep.
Oh, it's a lot.
It's a lot the suspension of belief is just destroyed in this match. There's also a spot where Sharmell is banging Jenna's head against the mat, but Jenna's head is clearly not going anywhere near the mat whatsoever. And the cameraman tries to do what WWE does constantly and shake the cam so you can't see, but doesn't do a great job at it. At this point, there's just blue feathers everywhere.
There's a lot of blue feathers, and they never get rid of them.
At one point, there's a camel clutch that Sharmell does. It looks actually pretty decent, but then it's followed up by them like doing a rope running spot that just does not work because obviously we've already touched on it. Jenna can't run the ropes. Sharmell's out there in an evening gown. She ain't running for shit.
Okay.
It's just insane. I can't believe they put this.
Can I ask you about
on pay-per-view?
Is this in the running? Is that in the running for one of the worst spears you've ever seen in your life?
The spear is absolutely disgusting.
So Sharmell basically spears herself because she's running faster than Jenna is and just runs into her shoulder. And Jenna does not dive like no. Okay, now don't get me wrong. I never expected her
Jenna
to like
ducks
football
her head and
tackle
basically
her.
just hugs her.
She drops to her knees. She doesn't even like fall forward. She just drops to her knees, and Sharmell just runs into her. And it's I don't think I've ever seen a reverse spear in my life.
But that's basically what it was. You know, to her credit, Sharmell did 90% of the selling in this match, and she did well. She was working with an absolute amateur, and she's probably someone that doesn't have a ton of experience in ring herself. She's always been kind of a manager, you know, so respect to her for actually being able to do what they did.
Yeah, and there's a reason why Sharmell, you know, continued to stay in the business and do other things, and why Jenna Morasca has not been asked to return.
Sharmell literally got inducted to the Hall of Fame at WrestleMania weekend. So.
There you go. Well deserved.
Yeah, well deserved, absolutely. Her run with King Booker was some of my favorite shit in WWE at that time. I feel absolutely horrible for two people in this match, and it's Earl Hebner and Awesome Kong. The entire time this match is going on, you can tell how bad Earl doesn't want to be there.
Well, I mean, listen, I also agree. I feel bad for them both as well, but also until the match is over, Awesome Kong doesn't really have to do anything. She just kind of stood outside the ring like with a scowl on her face.
We're getting there for a minute. In a minute here. There is an awesome shot at some point where, yes, the scowl on Kong's face should probably be a meme, but it never got adapted. Because she's just staring at this like, what the fuck am I watching? And it's priceless because they keep showing her on camera, and it's great. There's a spot where Sharmell... is it Sharmell or Jenna? They're standing on the hair and pulling the arms up. That spot always makes me laugh because Jake Roberts used to tell a story about how Andre the Giant used to do that to him and just fuck with him. Like, imagine Andre the Giant standing on your hair and then just pulling your fucking arms up off the mat.
Yeah, that's Sharmell was doing that to Jenna, and it's I don't even know what to call it, because it's like it. Yeah, I mean, if you did it, it'd be painful, but it should.
They sold it horribly, but if you go watch the Andre the Giant documentary, Jake Roberts is in there talking about how he would literally, like, night after night, Andre would do that shit to him and literally, like, fucking tear his hair out.
Sucks.
And it's hysterical. There's a jawbreaker that Jenna hit that was actually probably the best looking move she did the entire match.
Yeah, but if it's the one that I'm thinking of, then like, okay, she executes it pretty decently, but Sharmell doesn't, like, bounce up. She kind of, like, spins out of it, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I get it's still probably is the best move that Jenna hits the whole match.
Soho, who I'm not very familiar with, gets involved in the match at one point, and there's an outside bump where Kong just is absolutely late. There's so much little space between, like, the ring side and the barrier, and I'm surprised by that, and that's probably why it's so fucked up. But Soho was really high up on the second rope, and Kong just had trouble getting around a cameraman and getting there in time, and Soho almost absolutely fucks herself up there.
Yeah, I didn't remember Soho at all before rewatching this match. Is it Soho or Sojo?
Sojo.
Okay, yeah, yes. I didn't.
It's probably autocorrect on my
tablet. No disrespect to her at all, but I before I rewatched this, I rewatched this and I was like, I don't remember this person at all.
Yeah, honestly, this bump she takes is the best in the entire match because Kong was just late, and she, like, rolls off of Kong's back and almost cracks her goddamn head off of the barrier. The match ends, like, right after this because there is a extension pulled off of Sharmell in which Jenna flaunts around the ring. It finds its way to Awesome Kong, who flaunts it around as well, and then Sharmell tries to plead to get it back, and Kong just knocks her the fuck out. Jenna covers her in the most cringe way ever, just overly sexualized, like you were talking about her entrance. The cover here is what stood out to me.
Yeah, so, like, that's the kind of stuff that's, like, sets it apart from, you know, the stuff we saw like in, like, the Attitude Era and stuff, where it's like they were always edgy, but very rarely were they, like, just explicitly sexual. You know what I mean? Like, they would always tease it, but, like, and they would make jokes about it, and they would, you know, and sometimes they would get a little down that direction, but, like, I don't think they ever really did anything like what happens in this match. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they did at some point, but I'm just saying, like, it wasn't the norm, even at their worst, I think.
For sure. The knockouts have always kind of been the trendsetters. Like, we talk about the women's evolution, as they call it, right? The knockouts division was always better than what WWE was presenting with the Divas title at the time. That I can give them their credit there.
I mean, yeah, I think I agree, but I also, like, you know, like I said about TNA as a whole, like, yeah, whenever they did do bad things, it was it was this bad. It was like it was
the worst of the worst. There is a post-match segment where Jenna wants to get up on Awesome Kong's shoulders and be paraded around the ring. Kong is not doing a good enough job, so Jenna starts slapping her back, and then Kong drops her. And you can see instantly how uncomfortable Jenna is taking the next bump because she gets into instant tuck position, and Kong lands her big splash. Jenna just doesn't move the entire time. She doesn't sell it. She just is dead from the second that Kong drops her on the mat before the splash, and I love it.
Do you think Kong put any like a little extra on that?
I watched it again today. It doesn't look like she dead asses or anything. She looks professional on it. Like she hit her move and she looks like she got the fuck out of there. I probably wouldn't have judged her if she did, but it's one of those things that's old-timey wrestling, and good for her for not doing so, because she probably could have taken advantage of her there and chose not to. So my score for this is 5 wigs. This is insanely amazing. This puts it right up there with the Shockmaster. They took 2 people who were clearly not trained properly and put them in the most overbooked segment possible. It was destined to die from the start. It's art. It's beautiful. I loved it. Thank you for showing this.
I'm so legitimately happy to hear you say that, because I thought you were like legit, not like pissed off, but like, damn it, why did I have to watch this? But I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a 5-wig segment for sure. It's like it's one of the big boys. We're unfortunately gonna have a couple big ones out of the way, because I just want to talk about them, but. Man, it sucks so hard. It sucks so hard. It's tough to watch.
Some of the worst shit I've ever seen.
But like, it's still like it's just. But I will literally enough.
Show it to everybody I can at this point.
It's like it's just bad enough that it's still fun. It's close. It's close. Absolutely. It's close to being so bad it's bad, but it's like it's towing that line so nicely.
Yeah, it has several spots that save it. You have the post-match where Kong just murders Jenna and Jenna just doesn't sell anything. That saves a lot of it for me. If you watch this on mute, it's probably amazing, because the commentary is just horrible, but what's going on in front of your eyes is so comical that you can't look away.
It's the only way I would not like this match, I think, is if I had paid to see it. If I had bought that pay-per-view at the time, if I was into TNA or being in the crowd that night, and having paid money to see it, I think I would be upset about that match. Thankfully, that is not the case. I actually saw it years ago, but it's pretty incredible. And it's a relic in time, because they still do. Okay, so they I think the overall thing I took away from it was it's a relic in time, because they still do, and by they I mean most of the major companies still do the occasional celebrity match and stuff like that. But the quality has
had Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania,
and it was pretty great. Damn funny, and it wasn't like a technical showdown, but it was slapstick humor, and it was fun, and they just generally don't do these almost guaranteed to be dog shit celebrity matches anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, even as someone who doesn't watch WWE and is just an AEW stan at this point, self-admitted, their one celebrity match that they did was sick as fuck. They had that Steve Amell versus Chris Daniels at All Out. And Amell put himself through a table off the fucking ring post. Are you insane?
Yeah, and he had a pretty good match in WWE as well with Cody.
Oh, with Stardust. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And again, against with Neville, who was Pac.
Yep. I forgot about that completely. Holy shit.
Yeah, that was all. That was good. I mean, I think they just do a better job. Bad Bunny was sick the couple times he's shown up. Listen,
as someone who doesn't who usually hates on that shit, that was good.
I Hey, what's up, internet? I'm about to get hated on. Logan Paul was actually pretty damn good as well.
I didn't watch the segment, so maybe I'll go check it out now.
Listen, I'm just talking about the match, not about my feelings about the guy, but he was pretty damn good too. I think this was an era of that early reality TV era where these people were getting so famous so fast, and anybody was willing to put them on anything, and wrestling was absolutely caught up in the whole thing. This is, obviously a symptom of that.
It also makes you really appreciate where female wrestling has come in the last 15 to 20 years.
100%.
Because now that we're closing out pay-per-views and having matches of the year and shit, and this stuff is a long forgotten relic that we look back now and jest.
The thing is, you could totally do a gimmick, even if it was a very short-lived one, if they were only planning to do a match or two with her. You could do a gimmick based off of, quote-unquote, I was on Survivor, about being, tough because, I survived the elements and stuff. There's something there. I'm not a writer, but, something better than my gimmick is I was in Playboy, so I'm going to hump your chin while I pin you.
Yeah, exactly. So you had something you wanted to bring up before we got into our second subject. What was it?
Just wanted to... This is not directly wrestling related, so this is my little quick tangent in between our two main topics. But I just wanted to ask if you had ever heard of this team fighting championship.
I sure haven't.
Oh my god. So... I don't even know how to explain this thing. Hold on, let me pull up the fucking Wikipedia here. It's not Ultimate Fighters. I'm not looking for whatever. Here we go. It's an MMA league, like a UFC or a Bellator or something like that. Except it's exactly what it sounds like. It's teams. It's
Is this the Russian shit?
Yeah, it's
where it's 3-on-3 MMA and
they
shit.
do up to 5-on-5.
It's wild. I have seen clips now that I think about it. And it can be brutal because they don't have any rules about teaming up on
It's
each other.
out of control, dude, and it would never happen here, and nor should it.
No, it'll never get sanctioned.
Nor should it.
No.
It's insanity.
It's dangerous as fuck, but intriguing.
That's exactly it, dude. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because it's just it's where do you go? I guess where the question is where how does MMA even innovate at this point and
evolve?
Yeah,
that,
UFC is the best they've done basically as far as the not the setting but
hand-to-hand
combat.
But yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I at a very base level applaud this for them trying something new, because it's definitely something that we've never seen before.
100%. But it needs to be far more regulated.
It just needs to be something else entirely.
You can't have 10 fighters and one ref. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, they do have a couple refs. The couple matches.
The one I saw only had one.
I mean,
and I was like,
that may
what?
be the ones that I'm seeing on YouTube and stuff. A couple of them anyway. Excuse me. Have 3 refs inside the ring and a couple dudes standing out on the perimeter too. Mm-hmm. So, but. Yeah, it's insanity, dude, because it's just it so quickly devolves. If you take one dude out, and then all of a sudden you're getting 2-on-1s and 3-on-1s, and I don't know. It's a mess, but man, it is a spectacle.
It's the new evolution of hooligan fights.
Yeah, basically. That's all. I just wanted to bring that up real quick and see.
Well, it brings us nicely into our second subject here, because we're going to talk about the Brawl for All. One of the most useless and destructive ideas ever in pro wrestling history.
Oh, buddy, this one's more sad than funny. Maybe not, but I don't know. But it's tough.
It's sad when you think about it, but it's also hysterical because it leads to one of the biggest pro wrestling real life rivalries ever that still lives to this day. We'll get to that in a second here. The Brawl for All is a tournament that happened between June 29th and August 24th, 1998. You can see it on Peacock. It's listed as Peacock sucks. Their listings suck. You got to go to Raw season 6, and it's episode 26 through 34. If you want to browse through it and catch all the Brawl for All matches, go for it. I don't have individual timestamps for you. That's far too much work.
And I'll say, and I'm not trying to divert people or anything, but if you don't want to watch every match because it's a lot, like there's YouTube videos that sum up a lot of this stuff too.
Yeah, the Dr. Death and Bart one is one we will talk about for a minute. That's on the July 27th, 1998 Raw. So go ahead and check that out. That one specifically will be a talking point.
That's definitely like a swing point in the whole situation here.
Absolutely. They've done a documentary on the Brawl for All. There has been podcasts ad nauseum from everybody in the industry. It's the one topic from the era that pretty much everyone has the same opinion on, and that is that it was shit and it was a bad idea and they never should have done it. Jim Cornette himself, who I absolutely hate, he's one of the few people that actually has me blocked on Twitter, but I agree with him here. He says it's probably the worst idea in the history of the professional wrestling business.
It's up there. It's up there.
Yeah, it's the idea of Vince Russo, who is a very polarizing character. At the time, he really hated Bradshaw, and he came up with the idea one day after hearing Bradshaw say, "If this were real, I would beat everybody's ass in the locker room." Bradshaw said that in the locker room one day, and Russo overheard it, so this Brawl for All concept became his little brainchild. This has been corroborated by multiple people as well, not just Russo. It's been said by Pritchard on his show. Cornette said it all. So this is basically how it went down. Imagine booking 2 months of television based off of like a fucking pissing match.
Okay, yeah. So like what I understand and what I don't understand. What I understand is not liking Bradshaw. I get it.
For
I
sure.
get it.
100%. I'm there.
But what I don't get is how you take Bradshaw saying I could beat anyone's ass in a bar fight, and you go, "Oh, I know what'll do. Well, I know how I'll prove that. A boxing match. You know what a boxing match is? Not a bar fight."
But it's not also a boxing match because they can use takedowns.
Yeah, that's real bizarre to me.
While they're wearing these big, ridiculous fucking gloves that are made to knock people out.
And a couple times it did.
It's just wild. It did for sure. Cornette and Russo, as well as the talent themselves, claim that they were promised that the winner would get a big push and work with Steve Austin at the time, who was the champion. The only person that refutes this is Bruce Pritchard on his show. He refutes it, but that's what, on the Dark Side of the Ring documentary, that was basically every wrestler, every performer that was involved in the tournament, that was their opinion, is that they were told that they would get a big push if they won this thing, this real shoot fighting. That didn't end up being the case, unfortunately. There was actually real fighters at the time in WWE that chose to opt out of it. They had Ken Shamrock, who was a legit UFC champion. He opted out of it after being committed at first. Dan Severn was in it for the first round, won his match, and then realized how dumb this made him look and opted out of the rest of the tournament.
Dude, Dan Severn would have won the whole thing.
But he said, "Nah, dude." He's like, "This makes me look so dumb."
I mean, he was right, but at the same time, Dan Severn could have beat everyone's ass.
He could have, absolutely. But they weren't doing submissions or anything like that. It was just strikes and takedowns. And, like, they had judges that were just WWE employees that never fucking judged fights in their life.
I'm going to watch Dan Severn highlights.
Dan Severn's pretty sick. On Dark Side of the Ring, when they talk about the participants, we have just a range of different people. There's a guy named Brockus who I'm not completely familiar with.
No, I'm not familiar with Brockus either. That's like most of the names on here I recognize, but that was one that I'm not familiar with.
JR was quoted as saying is that Brockus had as much business being there as he did, as JR himself being in the ring.
Oh no.
JR also, kind of talks second-handedly about Bart Gunn's quality here when he says, Bart Gunn was hardworking, dependable, and loyal. You could rely on him. They never really expected much from him. And it gets really weird. The aspects of Brawl for All and the different driving goals of Russo and JR in this are like going to be two themes that run, because you've got Russo who's just literally trying to bury JBL the entire time, and you have JR who's trying to push his boy Dr. Death over the moon 10 years too late.
I mean, Dr. Death was sick, so like, maybe, but
nah. 10 years earlier when he was working, absolutely. Dr. Death was sick, no disrespect to him, but at the time, he was past his prime, and he's in there getting in a boxing match with dudes like 10 years younger than him.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
It's very much like reminiscent of the end of Chuck Liddell's career, to me, in hindsight, where he was just getting in there with young studs and getting his head beat in. He
was just too slow at that point.
Mm-hmm. I also had a little side note is that the goal in life is to find somebody that looks at you the way that JR looks at Dr. Death, because he's got a fucking hard on for Dr. Death 24/7. The format and the scoring of the tournament is really fucking weird. It's hybrid boxing and wrestling, as we discussed. There's 3 1-minute rounds. You get 5 points for a takedown, 5 points for most punches in a round. It is not noted there whether it's punches landed or just punches thrown. It's just most punches in a round. And you get 10 points for a knockdown. The rumored payouts for the tournament was $75K for the tournament winner, $25K for the runner-up, and during the tournament you had a $5K to win per fight and $2.5K to show up per fight. So at least to their credit, they were paying these guys, whether win or lose, to show up, which is very reminiscent of current MMA payouts.
Yeah, I don't understand how you score these like takedowns. I don't even understand why they would include these takedowns when at least from the matches that I had watched, it looked almost impossible to stop someone from taking you down if they got your waist. Like, because you don't have your hands.
Not only that, they would take the person down and then the referee would immediately stand them back up.
Yeah, like you just get the points and then you get up and then you can just do it again.
Yeah. They were attempting to do legit fights with referees and judges who had never done it before. No one understood the rules. Often commentary would even admit not knowing what was going on with these things. Everyone was just confused as hell. And it didn't portray right on television whatsoever. Some first round highlights. Management claimed that the first round pairings were pulled out of a paper bag. Bruce Pritchard claims that Savio Vega, of all people, witnessed the draw, but the talent still believes that it was all a work. The rest of the people involved all believed it was set up. 2 first round matchups saw tag team partners fighting each other, which made no sense. While Dr. Death fought a man that literally was blind in one eye.
Yeah, okay. Not rigged, right? Not rigged.
But you have Bob Holly and Bart Gunn, who are tag team partners, fighting each other in the first round. And you have Dr. Death fighting fucking Pierre, who we'll get to, is great worker, but blind in one eye, literally wrestles with a fucking patch on it, and he's in there getting his fucking bell rung. It's not great.
We need to get there for sure. What I do love is
Godfather, because all he does is talk about how high he was before every single fight. Like, if you watch the Dark Side of the Ring documentary, he just talks about how he would just smoke blunts all day and then go do these silly boxing matches because he was just getting paid for them. Like, extra cash besides on top of what he was already getting paid to show up. He literally lost in the first round to Dan Severn. He could just
show up and swing for the fences.
Got put back in after Severn said, no, I'm good. Bart Gunn faces tag team partner Bob Holly in the first round. And he just talks about how weird it was to literally sit there and beat his ass for 3 minutes and then share a hotel room with him that night. And I feel bad because, like, literally the company you work for probably shouldn't put you in a situation like that. That's some shitty like WWE tactics there.
They also probably, yeah, like you're putting them in a situation where if you somehow, even if you're not trying to go full force because it's your buddy and your tag team partner, if you hurt each other, you're putting yourself out of work. Like, it's not just about you. It's you could hurt either guy, and you're hurt. You're
absolutely. They were
work away from
working
both
as
of them.
the New Midnight Express, and Cornette was their manager, and basically the tournament just ended that entire run. Not that it was going to mean tons of things for them, but this tournament literally basically ended Bart Gunn's career.
Yeah, but not yet. At this point, it was still probably the highlight.
The second round shit, like, to add to the suspicion, the entire thing was reshuffled. The bracket that was originally presented as the Brawl for All bracket in the tournament was reshuffled for the second round, once again in Dr. Death's favor. But little did they know, Dr. Death was going up against Bart Gunn in the second round, because they believed that was going to be the easier fight for Dr. Death. In the weeks and days leading up to the second round match, Bart Gunn repeatedly asked management if there would be any repercussions for winning the bout against Dr. Death, and was comically dismissed by all. Like, they were ribbing him backstage, making fun of him, saying, yeah, you're not going to beat Dr. Death. There's no way, shit like that. He was endlessly ribbed, even though he had been the only decent fighter out of the first round. JR's quote is, "Why wouldn't you be confident in Dr. Death? Is that a sin? He was a fucking 4-time All-American wrestler in Division 1. They don't give that shit out." That's a direct quote from JR. He was pissed because at this time, he was really touting Dr. Death. And what's about to happen on this July 27th, 1998, Raw is insane. The first 2 rounds of the Dr. Death Bart Gunn match are pretty boring, Dave. I don't know if you got to check it out.
I'm not sure, but I will say to this point, a lot of the crowds weren't in it. They through a lot of that first round, people were
because none of it was good. It was very amateur fighting, and just like nobody understood how it worked.
Yeah, it was a lot to just dump on everybody, but yeah, no, please continue.
Yeah, the first 2 rounds, there was nothing much to write home about. They each landed a takedown, but other than that, like, there was no great striking. But halfway through the third and final round, Bart shoots for a single leg on Dr. Death, and Dr. Death tears his fucking hamstring. So for the rest of the match, he's unable to, like, walk properly, which gives Bart the opportunity to absolutely just tee off on his face, eventually knocking him out, putting him out in the corner. I love how commentary, JR in particular, quickly moves into damage control. Just saying Dr. Death was done for, he's too old. Literally burying one of his best friends as he got knocked the fuck out.
And that's the point where not only did the crowd get back into it, but like the one thing that they didn't account for happening just happened. So you gotta imagine the scramble backstage as well.
Absolutely. You had a perfect setup because at that point, Bradshaw had already made it into the finals. So all you had to do is have JR's boy, Dr. Death, make his way past Bart Gunn, who they thought was the easiest opponent. And you have the final set up between Russo's boy and, JR's boy. It would have been perfect, but Bart Gunn threw a fucking wrench in there. The finals itself is an absolute insane knockout. Bart just dummies Bradshaw the entire fight. Looking back on it, it's kind of gross because during the documentary, Russo's discussing it the whole time with the biggest smile on his face. He probably had an erection the entire time, reminiscing and watching it back, watching Bradshaw just get his brains beat in.
It's something else. I mean, like, both these guys are big boys, and they're both swinging for the fences. But Bart hits him with this 1-2, but it's you know he's not. He's a strong guy, but you can tell he's not like a natural fighter because he
Not at all.
comes with these slow ass hooks. Like he's a strong guy, but he's punching through mud, and he hits this 1-2 and catches him in the side of the head, and yeah, it's that's all it takes.
It's tough to watch now, especially with like CTE being prevalent in the sport and just combat sports in general, because you wonder how much damage this caused on a lot of people that were in the tournament. The fallout is that Bart Gunn won this fucking thing. The last person anyone in creative ever expected to. He never got the implied push that was intended for the winner. He spent most of the rest of the year at home until being approached about the Butterbean fight. This Butterbean fight is a wild WrestleMania spectacle, much like we have talked about with Sami Zayn and the Jackass match, and Logan Paul, as you said, was quite the spectacle as well.
Well, hold on, let me ask you this real quick before we get to the Butterbean fight. Do you think, like, at least, like, do you think, despite the fact that it was part of the Brawl for All, which is obviously this event was, nonsense, but do you think this is the biggest biggest singles victory of Bart Gunn's career, despite it not being a wrestling match? This knockout of Bradshaw,
this run in
the
his
finals.
career, this 2-month run that he had, absolutely singles, because he never had anything after it. This tournament essentially killed his career in the United States, and then he went and performed in Japan for a couple of years after that, but never really, did much after. So yeah, this is absolutely the peak of Bart Gunn's career.
Yeah, so it's just that's why I bring that up, is because it's just like it's one of the fastest declines like in wrestling history. It's like what
it's the fastest peak and decline. Yeah,
exactly. He goes from like next to nothing to the man to nothing at all in
a year's time. Absolutely.
Yeah,
because there was several months. The WrestleMania was March the following year, and Brawl for All ended in August, so it was quite some time where he literally just sat at home and did nothing, and then they called him up out of the blue going into WrestleMania season, when I guess Vince just wanted a spectacle for WrestleMania and said, hey, let's make this idiot box Butterbean, who is a legit killer, like a trained boxer with tons of knockouts. I mean, punch him into your YouTube machines there, kids, and Google Butterbean and see what this man can do.
Butterbean was never like the best boxer, but he was known to punch hard as hell.
Yeah.
And also, you don't have to be the best boxer. He was way more than good enough to fight a guy who's not a boxer.
100%. And Bart did train, to his credit, but they didn't give him enough time. Like, they didn't. I think this was like on like a 4-week notice that all of a sudden he's just fighting Butterbean at WrestleMania. It's not like a camp. He didn't take 12 weeks.
Yeah, he had like a month, and he
did his best, but
if he was in his right mind, he was shitting himself that entire month.
Absolutely. A direct quote from Butterbean is to my understanding is, Bart knocked out Dr. Death, and Vince was pissed, so they called me in as punishment. That was Butterbean, a direct quote from the documentary. That's wild if your agent explains it that way to you, that you're still explaining it that way 20 years later. Godfather recalls a conversation with Butterbean where he says that Butterbean himself respects what the wrestlers do, but they're not trained professionals. Like, he will kill Bart in seconds, which is exactly what he proceeded to do in WrestleMania 15. He did it in 36 seconds. Just walked across the ring, threw a couple punches, and Bart was down and out bad. It's one of the worst knockouts I've ever seen.
it's so brutal, and like it's I know I use that word a lot, but like it's even if you didn't follow the Brawl for All and you just watched this pay-per-view, so you just saw this match, you would go, that guy doesn't know how to box.
Exactly.
There was no reason, there was no discernible reason why this match should have happened, if you could even call it a match. And it seemed like a lose-lose for Bart Gunn, because, you know, like you said, in a way it seemed like they were punishing him, but all he was doing was what they asked him to do, go out there and fight. It's not his fault he won. Like, I mean, it is. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, Bart Gunn is a goddamn hero in this story, because he basically at verbatim like says the same shit you just did. Like, all I was doing my job. Like, why am I being put in this situation? He knew the second that he got KO'd, like, his career in WWE was over. Imagine that, getting your ass knocked out and then coming to and just being like, yeah, this is done. He was never, I don't think he was ever on WWE TV again after that. If he was, it was nothing major. He'd go on to Japan. He actually had a legit MMA fight in which he won. And after that fight, he was offered a rematch with Butterbean, but it was only on 4 days' notice, which he wisely declined. He said he wanted an actual 12-week camp, and Butterbean's camp said no, they wanted another spectacle, but he wouldn't give it to him, so props to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, this Brawl for All concept unfortunately killed the careers of several people. Not only Bart Gunn, but Dr. Death never recovered. He never had a good run anywhere after this. He just absolutely crumbled and died, basically, professionally. Also, Savio Vega had he got some sort of injury during this tournament. I'm sorry, I can't speak to it exactly what it was, but he never wrestled again in WWE after the Brawl for All. And Savio Vega was always good.
Yeah, he was never going to be like world champion, but he was he was a solid guy for sure.
It also tarnished JR's career as a scout for years, because they signed Dr. Death to big money back then when they couldn't afford it tons, because this was still before they were losing the Monday Night Wars at this point, and Dr. Death was a big signing for them, and he didn't pan out whatsoever. He was out of the company in like 6 months after the Brawl for All, I believe. Russo still finds it entertaining. Jim Cornette still wants to murder him over it, literally. It's just one of the most wild things that ever happened in wrestling, and unfortunately, it hurt way more people than it benefited.
I'd argue it didn't really help anyone. The only person it could have helped was Bart Gunn, and then they demolished that.
No, it helped Russo's fucking ego. For sure.
Well, sure.
He still looks back at this and gets his rocks off and, like, giggles. It's gross.
Of course.
One thing that watching this shit back made me think of was how fucking sick Steve Blackman's music was.
Oh, dude, everything about Steve Blackman was sick. What are you talking about?
It's like this, it's some really bad, like, almost NES era fucking chiptune shit, but it hits so hard. I love it. And there's also another really bad segment before the first ever Brawl for All match. There is a segment beforehand with Ken Shamrock and Triple H that is just the most cringe fucking shit ever. I suggest you check it out.
Well, yeah, I got a little trivia for you. I think you'll know the answer to this, but maybe it'd be pretty fun if you don't. I mean, one of the guys in this tournament is still active and has been Ring of Honor champion within the past like 4 years.
Still,
do you know who that is?
Ring of Honor champion in Brawl for All. Holy shit! I'm not gonna cheat. Who the fuck would it be? I'm trying to think of ROH champions in the last 4 years.
He became champion sometime in like 2019, I believe.
I can't think of it. Who is it?
Quebecer Pierre is
PCO.
fucking PCO.
No.
Yeah,
You're thinking of somebody else.
No, I'm not. Click on his name on
No,
Wikipedia.
it's not. So his tag team partner was in it. That's the man with the one eye. It's not PCO himself.
Pierre Carl Ouellet.
No, he was not in Brawl for All. I don't think so.
It's in his
Brawl for
along
All.
with Jacques. Ouellet was rehired in the WWF in 1998 again, but rarely utilized. Ouellet competed in the Brawl for All tournament, but lost in the first round to Dr. Death Steve Williams.
Yeah, but that's not.
It's PCO.
No, PCO doesn't have one eye though, dude.
Yeah, he does.
No, I swear. Does he really?
I'm on his Wikipedia page right
Am I just
now.
like hella high right now and just vibing?
There's a picture. It says there's a picture. It says Ouellet in 1995, and he has an eye patch on.
All right. Well, maybe I'm just stupid right now. Well, good for you, Dave. I didn't know that shit. I didn't know PCO. I always thought PCO was his fucking partner. Why?
No, that was he was. Yeah,
That's some
he was
like Mandela effect bullshit. That I just
he
have
looks
blocked out
so
of it.
different.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. He looks way different than he did. But I mean that was 30 years ago, almost. So
Absolutely. So before we go, you got anything coming up that you're looking forward to? We're heading out to fucking Dynamite and Rampage next week on 420. That's gonna be tight.
That's definitely the biggest thing I'm looking forward to. I mean, like obviously, we're always looking forward to just about every AEW pay-per-view and stuff. But yeah, I have not missed AEW in the couple times that they've come to Pittsburgh so far. I believe I've been to all of them, and I would like to keep that trend going. And I'm very excited to hang out with you guys,
especially the way they've been
watch that
stacking the cards last minute. Like Tony Khan today, just out of nowhere, just gives us Punk versus fucking Penta tomorrow. Are you out of your goddamn mind?
That's good. Like he can do that. That's the most messed up thing is he can just do that. He just has that talent sitting around. He can just pull.
Hell yeah, absolutely.
It's gross.
Well, I ain't got much to add. Maybe we'll come back here and like next week do like a quick little AEW Dynamite recap after we go and hang out at the show and shit before we do
that would be cool.
Long form one. Let's hit the socials before we leave. The podcast itself is at Bad Wrestling Pod on Twitter. I am at BadMood247 on Twitter. Dave, what are you?
I am at _DSIN on Twitter.
Let me check one thing before we leave because I've started uploading these on the YouTube for people. I just want to see if I can give you guys the YouTube name real quick to make it easy. And I will edit out all this dead air.
I think the YouTube channel is just called Bad Wrestling is Good.
YouTube is just Bad Wrestling is Good with a question mark at the end. You'll see the Shockmaster and Curly Bill from the first episode.
Curly Burl.
Curly Burl. Until then, this is Chuck and Dave. We'll see you next time, man. Well, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for listening. Have a very Curly Burl day.
Hell yeah. See you later.